when I hit the brakes, I went flying. I remember being just so mad that I was out of the race. And your adrenaline's pumping. And I got out of the car and I was just angry. And I got in like the ambulance, they come get you and they have to drive you to, they're like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I was conscious. I got out of the car myself. I walked to the car, like to the safety vehicle. And it was about 10 minutes later, I was trying to get my helmet off. And this is kind of gross, but I'll tell you anyway. So I'm pushing and I'm like, why can't I get this off? And I take my glove off and I had exploded the joint that holds my thumb on. And it was just dangling, like completely, like almost all, like just being held on by the skin. But I hadn't even realized yet, like the pain hadn't set in. But then once I saw it, I was like, oh, that hurts really bad. And then I was like walking and I was like, oh, my ankle hurts. My ankle was broken. I had 6 broken ribs and I had a compression fracture in my back. It took 10 or 15 minutes for the adrenaline to wear off before I knew how hurt I was. I've never said this publicly. During the pilot of Malcolm in the Middle, I got a concussion. It's easy to kind of correlate the two, right? You know, traumatic brain injuries with bad memory, you know? But I don't know if that's what it is. Is some of my memory issues have to do with, from when I was 8 years old, I was doing so much all the time that you almost stop absorbing, right? Even being on Malcolm. You know, my memories become what I see from the outside. So if I watch an episode or I watch a movie I was in, my memory becomes me sitting here watching it. I don't remember what happened on set that day, like with my son. I feel like I'm missing it because my memory becomes the photo of being there when I look at photos of him and how fast he's grown. You know what I mean? And I go, why can't I remember being in the moment? I remember the photo.
It's Mayim Bialik's breakdown. She's gonna break it down for you because you know she knows a thing or two. So now she's gonna break down. It's a breakdown. She's gonna break it down.
Hi, I'm Mayim Bialik.
I'm Jonathan Cohen.
And welcome to our breakdown, the place where we break things down so you don't have to. Today we're going to break down someone who's an actor, a musician, but what he really wants you to know that he does for a living is he's a race car driver. It's Frankie Muniz. That's right, Malcolm from Malcolm in the Middle. He rose to fame in the early 2000s, hugely popular. But when Malcolm in the Middle ended, he ended up playing drums for a band. And what he really wanted to do was be a race car driver. And we're going to talk to him all about it.
You're going to notice through this episode, there's a fly buzzing around my head if you're watching on YouTube. And I can't get rid of it. So you can play a little bingo game noticing Jonathan swatting the fly. It's hilarious.
Frankie Muniz also owns an olive oil company. There's so many things that we get to talk to him about, including a lot of really interesting, kind of mysterious things about his memory, his brain activity, concussions. He talks about all of it. And I think 3 times says that he's telling us things that he's never talked about before. So I cannot wait for you to hear us talk to Frankie Muniz. Frankie, welcome to The Breakdown. Break it down.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
I feel like our paths have like sort of crossed in some way. I'm sure we've been at something together, but I've never gotten to talk to you. And Jonathan and I are both very excited to have you here. So thank you.
No, thanks for having me. I mean, it is interesting, you know, the fact that we were kind of in the same circles for a long time, but no, I don't think we've actually ever met in person. So nice to officially meet you.
Nice to officially meet you. I'm going to start with that you race cars.
Yeah.
So there's many things that sometimes when we are child or teen actors, we finish the show that we're on and it gives us a certain amount of like success and like this and that. But I've never interacted with someone whose life decision was to start racing cars.
It all started because I was an actor, right? Because I got to do the pro celebrity race that they do at Long Beach every year because I was on the show, right? And I won that.
Wait, okay, so hold on, that's just like a charity thing? Like I've never been to, sorry, I was not one of the cool kids. No one was inviting me to I don't even know where Long Beach is. I'm just kidding. But so tell us what this is for people who are like, what's he talking about?
Yeah, so for 40 years, actually, Toyota put on the Grand Prix of Long Beach. It's an IndyCar event. It was a kart event. And for 40 years, they did a pro celebrity race. So it'd be, I don't know, 12 or 14 celebrities and 6 or so pro race car drivers. And they send you off to Willow Springs for a couple weekends, and they train you to be race car drivers. But it's 100% serious. Like, there's nothing, like, sure, yes, it's for charity. You're raising money for kids, but everyone there was dead serious on being the best they could be. And, even though we were racing Toyota Celicas or it was Scions certain years, you're still going 130 miles an hour in a car, racing people on a racetrack. And there is a danger aspect to it. So they take it very seriously, the way they train the drivers. And then the race is, I don't know, I race professionally now, and I would say that the competition in the pro celebrity race was more cutthroat. People wanted that victory more than I'm not being serious, but
yeah.
But no, I won that, and that feeling of crossing the finish line first, I swear, was the greatest feeling I've ever experienced in my entire life. Just, I don't know, the adrenaline, the pure joy, and I knew in that moment that I wanted to chase that feeling. But even in that at that time, you go, well, how do you become a professional race car driver? I got to do that race. I didn't realize that most professional race car drivers start when they're 5 or 6 years old, racing karts and kind of working their way up, and they get into cars at 11 or 12. And, by the time they're 16, 17, 18, they've already been racing for, 13 years and have tons of experience. I was 18 at the time. So I was old to be getting started into that world.
I need to stop you though, because, okay. So sometimes when you're an actor on a TV show, there's certain guidelines that you're supposed to follow. Like, don't go horseback riding. Don't go zip lining. Yeah. Like, please don't be stupid on the weekends. Like, that's like a thing that Chuck Lorre would like look us dead in the eye and be like, don't be dumb. Yes. So I'm not saying that you were being dumb, but to me, there's something about like a bunch of celebrities driving 100 miles per hour that doesn't seem like a great idea.
I mean, I know, they did a very good job of keeping us as safe as possible, but like I said,
you're driving 100 miles per hour, yes, Frankie.
There's people who have crashed. There's people I saw in my race, cars flipped in that race. Like,
you could die.
You could, but you could also die going to the grocery store.
But I have to go to the grocery store. I don't have to race a car.
I have to win. No, I'm kidding. No, I think, yes, I know that like insurance for like doing TV shows and all that, like they make you fill all that stuff out. Yeah. Like, I won't ride motorcycles. I won't go skydiving. Right. I won't race cars. But, I think maybe I didn't tell them that I was doing this race. I don't know what it was. And I got through it, because I was still doing Malcolm at the time. I was still on Malcolm at the time. And one of the professional teams that owned an IndyCar team was there. And they came up to me. They're like, oh, we'd love to have you come out and you could just test our race car just for fun. So I flew to Houston and did like a 2-day test. And I remember sitting in the race car for the first time. Like, I was getting a seat molded, like they mold the seat to your body. And I was sitting in the car and I was so petrified just sitting in the car, just not knowing what it was going to be like. And by the end of the 2-day test, it ended up that I was faster than their current paid driver that they had. And so they signed me to a 2-year development deal. And next thing I knew, I was a professional race car driver. That's not a typical story, but that's how it happened for me.
I actually want to know, when you first won that celebrity race with the professional drivers, were you like, in the back of your mind, were they just being nice to you? Like, were they pissed? Like, if I'm a professional driver and all of a sudden this like youngish kid, 18, comes and makes me look silly, I'm going to be like, oh, like, how do you think they're not holding back? Like, what happened?
Yeah, well, there's 2 elements to that. So one, the celebrities start 30 seconds ahead of the pros, which it is a big advantage, but not for the pros. But then the other thing is there's 2 winners. Sure, it's a pro celebrity race. There's There's pros and celebrities, but there's a celebrity winner and there's a pro winner. So sure, you as a pro, you still want to beat everybody, but you're in your own battle, right? So I won as a celebrity. And then the next year they bring you back as a pro. If you won the previous year, you come back as a pro. I did that a few times and had so much fun with that event. But then the 40th anniversary, so this was 2016, they brought back to answer your question of if the people are taking it serious, they brought back all the previous winners of the race. So I think it was like 20 pros and 20 celebrities who had won the race to do the final year. And it's me and Al Unser Jr. and Jimmy Vassar and Max Pappas, all these like racing heroes of mine. And I qualified second. I outqualified Al Unser Jr., who's the king of Long Beach, right? He has the most IndyCar wins ever in Long Beach. And I was so excited that like I beat these guys. They were so mad. But then they ended up inverting the grid for the final year. So if you started second, that means you qualified second, you started second to last.
I will say, so Jonathan's the kind of person who's not a very confident passenger in a car. He likes to drive the car. You may not know this. Jonathan's brother was in a very significant car accident, not a professional accident, a civilian accident. And so Jonathan does not like to be a passenger. He doesn't even really like to drive, I don't think. But I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how you convert, fear to excitement. This is like one of the most high adrenaline things that a human can do. It's also one of the least Jewish things that exist in the world. So I just needed to say that. Like, there's so many jokes about like things Jews don't do, like this. But can you talk about, was there a set of kind of like mental, exercises you did? What is the self-talk to go from terror to that thrill?
Yeah, I will say when, I just to back up a little bit. So I raced professionally from 2005 into 2009. I got really badly hurt. I broke my back, pins in my hand, the whole nine. Stopped racing. Always thought I'd go back, but just took a long time to heal. I ended up taking 13 years off until last year. And I said, look, I'm not getting any younger. I still feel like I have unfinished business in the racing world. Let me go back. But this time, instead of doing the IndyCar stuff, I want to go race NASCAR, which is like saying you're an Olympic diver and you want to go be an Olympic swimmer, right? They both involve pools, but they're different sports, different. I don't want to say different athletes, but they're just very different.
What's different, Frankie? What, you could tell me anything right now. I don't know the difference between Indy and NASCAR. I don't know shit.
Just the style, the way the cars look, but the style of the racing, the racecraft, the way the car's handled, everything about them is different. So like if you're used to one.
Are you going fast?
You're going fast. You're going real fast.
You wear a helmet?
You do wear a helmet.
There's like a pit crew?
Pit crew, pit stops.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Sure. We'll say yeah, but it's different. So so after such a long break, my first race back on a national level as a professional NASCAR driver was racing at Daytona this year. And Daytona, now you're not a race fan, but that's like the pinnacle that's like the Super Bowl of NASCAR is the Daytona 500 or racing at Daytona. The feeling I felt before, even the week before, I was shaking, convulsing. My heart rate was at like 180 beats per minute for like a week. Like it was bad. Like I actually felt like I was gonna, I just felt really sick. And the weird thing is the minute I put that helmet on and you start the engine and you start rolling from the pit lane, I had that feeling of I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Like it hit me where I go, this is what I feel like I was actually made to do. And since then, we did 20 races this year. I don't have those nerves anymore before the race. I have a little bit, it's the unknown, right? You don't know what's going to happen. A lot of it's completely out of your control, right? It's the cars around you, what happens in front of you, and you just have to react in those milliseconds. But when I'm in the race car, I truly feel like way more comfortable than anything else I've done as an actor or anything else in my life. I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do.
Mayim Bialik's Breakdown is sponsored by KiwiCo.
The gift of giving a child what they need to inspire them to learn more about a topic they love is what we call priceless. Unwrap inspiration with super fun science, technology, and art projects for kids with KiwiCo. With 9 different subscription options for different ages and subjects, there's something for every kid. When you give KiwiCo, it's so much more than a box of toys. It's the gift of discovery through hands-on experiences, giving kids the tools to learn about topics that they love, from dinosaurs to rocket ships. I love how KiwiCo projects aid in developing kids' natural creativity and curiosity using STEM principles. They have so many crates, they come in little crates, that foster child development, like the Tinker Crate that teaches critical thinking, problem solving, and it's a pipeline to innovation for all types of learners. It comes with all the materials and inspiration for science and engineering products, and you can build awesome things like a walking robot. KiwiCo delivers seriously fun, hands-on projects that inspire a lifelong love for learning. KiwiCo projects spark creative confidence for ongoing tinkering and experimentation. Like, you can buy a robot, but it is so much more fun to build your own. KiwiCo crates are fun and stress-free so that you can enjoy quality time with your kids, tackling projects together. Tested and approved by kids, no crate leaves without approval from their toughest critics, the kids. The day the KiwiCo box arrives will be your kid's favorite day of the month. There's something for kids of all ages, from infants and preschoolers to teens and beyond. Kids can discover everything from the science of magic, that's the crate that we have currently, to engineering a domino machine and more. There's no commitment. You can pause or cancel any time. Discover hands-on fun with KiwiCo. Get your first month free on any crate line at kiwico.com/break.
That's your first month free at kiwico.com/break. Mayim Bialik's Breakdown is supported by BetterHelp.
Many of our families or communities participate in a very thoughtful tradition of gift giving around the holiday season, ours included, although we do try to focus on enjoying the holiday by eating, laughing, visiting together, maybe with the occasional gift thrown in. Whether or not your family gives gifts during the holidays, you get to define how you give to yourself. The holidays are a great time to do that. So maybe that's by starting therapy, maybe going easier on yourself during tough moments, or how about treating yourself to a day of complete rest? Remember to give yourself some love this holiday season. My experience with therapy has been life-changing, and I need it at the holidays. That is when my therapist really earns her keep. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You fill out a brief questionnaire. They'll match you with a licensed therapist. You can switch at any time for no additional charge. In the season of giving, give yourself what you need with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/break today to get 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp. HELP.com/break. We did skip over. I broke my back and put pins in my hand, and then I had unfinished business in the race on the racetrack. I do want to hear about that part of it, because I think, like, coming back from a catastrophic or near catastrophic injury, like, I assume, I don't know a lot about breaking backs. I know that for some people, it leaves you not able to walk again. Clearly, you seem mobile. So I'm curious a little bit about that. But, like, what has overcoming that injury and also just, like, the psychology of racing taught you about life that you've sort of brought into the rest of your how you approach things?
How do I put this? When you get into a race car, like, there's the danger aspect. Like, it. I've raced, with competitors who've died in races. You know what I mean? Like, even these days, where it's so much safer than it was 10 years ago. It's so much safer than 20 years ago. They really make it put an emphasis on the safety, but you're still going 200 miles an hour. The danger element never crosses your mind. And if it does, you should probably stop racing. You know what I mean? Because it's going to slow you down. And the concept is you have to be fast. You have to beat everybody. You have to be fast. And so when I went in for that race, it was the start of the race. We used to do, with the Atlantic cars I used to drive, you did standing starts, which is like Formula One, where the lights come on and they go off and everyone goes. And we did that. And I think I was starting 5th or so. And the guy who was in first had a really bad start and almost stalled it. So he was kind of coming backwards when we were going. So it put us 3 wide going into the first corner. And now when you go into that first corner, you're basically playing chicken with everybody. I know where the latest I can go and hit the brakes and make the corner before you crash. And, I keep in mind, this is all happening in milliseconds. So you're waiting for them to hit the brake first, and then you just go a half a beat later, and then you'll be in front of them enough to where you get the corner. So we're going 200 miles an hour, and I'm like, they're not stopping. So I go, I'm going to hit the brakes because they're going to miss the corner, and I'll cut back underneath them. But our wheels were interlocked.
Yeah.
So when I hit the brakes, I went flying, and we all kind of went soaring through the air because, the cars I was racing have wings on it that keep the car into the ground. But once air gets underneath them, they basically become an airplane. And I remember being just so mad that I was out of the race, and your adrenaline's pumping. And I got out of the car, and I was just angry. And I got in like the ambulance. They come get you, and they had to drive you they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine."
You were conscious the whole time?
I was conscious. I got out of the car myself. I walked to the car, like to the safety vehicle, and it was about 10 minutes later, I was trying to get my helmet off. And this is kind of gross, but I'll tell you anyway. So my helmet, you have a Hans device, which is like this neck brace that connects to your helmet. So if you get in an accident, it restricts how far your neck can go so you don't break your neck. So to get it off, you have to push the button down and pull it at the same time to like disconnect it. So I'm pushing, and I'm like, why can't I get this off? This is 10 minutes or so after the wreck or whatever. Why can't I get this off? Like with this hand. And I take my glove off, and I had exploded the joint that holds my thumb on. And it was just dangling, like completely, like almost all, like just being held on by the skin. But I hadn't even realized yet. Like the pain hadn't set in. Yeah. But then once I saw it, I was like, oh, that hurts really bad. Yeah. And then I was like walking, and I was like, oh, my ankle hurts. My ankle was broken. I had 6 broken ribs, and I had a compression fracture in my back. It took 10 or 15 minutes for the adrenaline to wear off before I knew how hurt I was. So then they flew me in a helicopter to a hospital. I had surgery on my hand and all that kind of stuff. But I was more angry. Obviously, I didn't like the pain. No one likes pain. You know what I mean? But I was more mad that I was done for the season. And it unfortunately led to 13 years of not racing. But that didn't stop me. Like knowing that I had that accident or what happened didn't like restrict me from going back racing. That's not why I had the 13-year break. It was more like it took a year to heal. And then I started doing other things, and life took over, and you just get busier and busier and busier until you make a conscious decision to say, no, I'm going racing. I want this. And that's where I am now.
So what year was the accident? I'm trying to do the math.
2009.
In those 13 years then, you got engaged, you got married.
Got engaged, had a baby, got married. I actually joined a band. That's what took over my life. I played drums in a band, and we were on tour 300 days a year, touring all over, opening for Ed Sheeran and Third Eye Blind and a bunch of big bands. Yeah, so I did that from 2010 until 2014. Realized I loved the behind the scenes aspect of the music industry more than I enjoyed being in the band. I managed the band I was in. I did all the booking and the advancing of the shows. And when it came time to like go on stage, it was like a burden. Like, no, I have like the work to do to keep the band moving. And I decided that I kind of wanted to try to just manage bands. I don't know. So I did that for a while. Then my now wife and I, we started an olive oil company. And so I did a lot of things in that in-between period of racing. But it was actually my son being born, as kind of cheesy as this sounds. I was holding him the day he was born, and I was looking at him and saying, who is he going to grow up thinking that his dad is? Because everything that I had done in my life was in my past, right? Yeah, I used to be on a TV show. Yeah, I used to be in a band. We used to do this. I used to, all those were kind of dream job things. But like currently in that moment when my son was born, I wasn't really doing anything, and I felt like I wanted to make sure that I was a good example to him of like reaching for your dreams or working really hard for something that doesn't come easily. And that's why I decided to go racing. I know a lot of people would say, like, when they have kids, they slow down, right? They don't want to do the dangerous things. They sell the motorcycles. They say all that. I just feel like the racing community is so tight, and just with your competitors and the wives and the families, and it's just like this really fun environment to bring my son up in, but also having him see me working really, really hard and the highs and lows that come along with it. And I don't know, that's what I'm doing. At least that's what I'm telling myself.
Do you have concern about your safety? For, a lot of people will be like, oh, I don't want to take risks now that I have a kid.
I think most race car drivers, like most of my competitors, are 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, right? They don't have families. They don't have kids. They don't have any of those things that might make them go, do I want to take that risk? Do I want to, if you're, I'm saying, like, on track, if there's something that is high risk of potential crashing, the kid is going to take it, right? They're fearless. There's an element, without you knowing kind of like the tracks or what I'm talking about, like Daytona and Talladega, those are super speedways, and they put restrictor plates on the cars, which makes them have less power, but it makes all the cars be touching, basically 40 cars in a pack going 200 miles an hour. And you could you're just holding on for dear life, just and something happened in front of you and you're out, right? It can take out 20 cars, an accident that happens in front of you, and you hope not to be in it. I will say this, and maybe I shouldn't admit it, because my next race will be next year at Daytona. When I watch those races, now that I've experienced it in person, I go, I can't believe I have to do it again. Because
you don't have to, Frankie. You don't have to do it.
Well, if I want to be a race car driver, I have to, right? But those are those, they just raced at Daytona again in the Cup Series, and I was watching, like, shaking for the guys in the car, because I know what it feels like to be in there. And you're just waiting for something big to happen. And when I mean big, I mean cars flipping into the catch fence, on fire, like the whole nine. And yes, so to answer your question, there is an element where you go, like, I would hate for something to happen for my wife and my son. But in that same sense, my wife is ultra supportive of what I'm doing. And you need that. Like, you need the people around you to be supportive. But I don't know if there's a race car driver who gets in at those races who would say anything differently, to be honest. Like I said, those are more out of your control than the other ones, if that makes sense, because you're just kind of like, it's a lottery of who's going to finish and who's not, and you can't really dictate it.
Are you an adrenaline seeker in other parts of your life? Like,
not at all. Like, I hate heights.
He owns an olive oil company, Jonathan.
Yeah. Living on the edge. I just drink it straight. No, like, I've never been skydiving. I like roller coasters, but I've always, it's going to sound like the answer is yes. I rode motorcycles. I just sold my last motorcycle. I have no desire, you know what I mean? Like, that danger aspect doesn't do it for me. But I would say no. I mean, even like me on the streets now, like when I drive, I'm the slowest driver there is, because I've realized once you race cars, there's nothing I can do in a street car on my street or on the highway that means anything other than me getting in trouble or hurt. You know what I mean? So I would say no. I'm not a thrill seeker at all. No, I've never been skiing or snowboarding. Pretty lame.
It's interesting to not be a thrill seeker yet. Race car driving, playing in a band is definitely has some thrill to it, and live performance.
The thing about racing is I feel like I'm in control of it, right? I'm behind the wheel. I'm doing it. A lot of like skydiving, I don't know. That's scary to me. The band thing, sure. Yeah. Like being on stage, people cheering, all that. That's a cool thing, but that doesn't feel like a scary thing. I don't know. To go back, you asked something about what racing can bring into my life or things I've learned. And well, the first thing is it's not easy, right? Just because you say you want to do something, and no matter how hard you work, it all doesn't always come at the right time, right? Or you think, oh, I'm going to go out there and dominate, and it doesn't happen, or like the struggle of it, and it's taught me to have to keep fighting, like keep going, keep working hard. The one thing I love about racing, and I know we're talking about racing a lot, and forgive me for that, but that I really truly love is as an actor, you can put in the most amount of work you've ever put into a project, preparing, really dedicating yourself to a role and all that, and working as hard as you possibly can on set. And then you leave the set, the movie comes out, the show comes out, and people go and see it, or critics see it, or someone sees it, and they go, it wasn't that good. You know what I mean? It's opinion. It's people's opinions, right? Of whether they like a project or your role or whatever. What I love about racing is it's right there in black and white. If you're the best, you're at the top. If you're got work to do, you're down towards the bottom. You know what I mean? And I like the fact that it's not subjective. And I can kind of see where I stand at the end of every weekend and know how much more work I need to put into, or what I need to work on to be better.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I want to shift a little bit. You know, we talked about some of the physical challenges that come with this lifestyle and with, you know, the choices that you make. And you have a very interesting kind of medical history that's like peppered throughout, you know, things about you. And you know, I'm very interested in one of the facts that we have. I'm told that you've had 9 concussions. The first one when you were 7, playing goalie in a soccer game. This is something Jonathan and I have recently been talking about. I recently spoke with Dr. Mayim, who's, you know, really big in this world of sort of concussions and sort of the things that we don't realize, you know, impact our brains and in many cases, like our entire health. What do you know about the concussions you had, and how did you come to know this about yourself?
Well, yes, I remember being 7 years old. I was playing goalie and I dove to save a ball and I hit the goalpost, and obviously was hurt. But then, you know, went home, was nauseous. So like they went to the hospital, got CT scans, CAT scans, whatever they're called, and was diagnosed with, you know, mild concussion or concussion.
Sure.
That happened a lot when I was a kid. Not that specific thing, basketball, football, whatever. I always was hitting my head and it always kind of hurt. I've never said this publicly, during the pilot of Malcolm in the Middle, I got a concussion. There's a scene where me and my brother Reese are rolling on the ground, fighting each other and like just rolling across the kitchen floor. And first take, he turned me over and I went head back onto the floor and got a concussion. You know, I've definitely had a lot of them. I don't know how much, you know, I don't know if you've read that I have like memory issues or something like that or stuff like that. It's easy to kind of correlate the two, right? You know, traumatic brain injuries with bad memory, you know, but I don't know if that's what it is. Cause I've talked to my mom a lot about it. She'll bring up certain things because she was with me when I first started acting. We were, you know, flying all over the world together. And she brought up the other day, she was talking about us going to Australia. And I was like, I've never been to Australia. And she's like, how do you not remember going to Australia? Like, that's something that you remember. And I'm like, and I think back and I go, is some of my memory issues have to do with from when I was 8 years old, I was doing so much all the time that you almost stop absorbing so much of the things. It's not like that was like my one trip that year and I remember Australia. It's like I probably was in 50 countries that year. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like you're going here, you're going there all the time. So I don't know how much of it is because of that. Like I just didn't absorb as much as I should have, as much as the concussion element of it. I haven't looked too much into it. it's something over the last couple of years that I've been it got brought up actually originally. I did Dancing with the Stars in 2018, the memory thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a week called Most Memorable Year. And they're like, what's your most memorable year? And I was going to answer, and they go, yours was 2001. And they're like, oh, it was the year you were nominated for an Emmy and the Golden Globes and this and that. And I was like, so they started asking me all these questions about it. And I was, you sit down in this interview room and I go, I don't have any recollection of any of that. Like, I know it happened, right? I know I was nominated because someone told, I know that, right? But do I remember what I thought about or what I was doing in those moments? No. So I've been trying to talk it through and try to figure out what it is of why my memory is bad. But like I said, haven't looked too deep into it.
Mayim Bialik's Breakdown is supported by Ritual.
You know who's kind of a hot mess, Jonathan?
Literally everyone?
Yes, perfection is an illusion. I think we should give it up already. And that comes from a vitamin and supplement company. Ritual knows it's basically impossible to get all the nutrients you need from your diet 100% of the time. So they did this amazing thing. They made a multivitamin that helps you focus on what's important, like filling key nutrient gaps to support foundational health. It is easy and painless to incorporate Ritual products into my daily routine. And I love that they're vegan friendly. Ritual multivitamins are 100% made traceable with high-quality key ingredients in clean, bioavailable forms. You can trust what you're putting in your body. Their delayed-release capsules are designed to dissolve later. Where, Jonathan?
In the small intestine, an ideal place to absorb nutrients. Also,
they're non-GMO project verified, gluten and major allergen free, and as I mentioned, vegan. Ritual's Essential Prenatals high-quality formulation with nature-identical choline and clinically studied methylated folate support babies' neural tube development, super important, before and during pregnancy. They contain 350 milligrams vegan, sustainably sourced omega-3 DHA to support babies' brain development during pregnancy, and there's a minty or citrus essence in every bottle that helps keep things fresh and makes taking your multis every day actually enjoyable. Instead of striving for perfect health, how about you aim for supporting foundational health? Great news, Ritual's offering our listeners 30% off during your first month.
Visit ritual.com/breakdown to start Ritual or add Essential for Women 18 plus or prenatal to your subscription today.
Well, I think I appreciate you, being so honest about it. I can really relate as someone who had a ton thrown at me, also at a very young age. And, it's kind of like you are juggling everything. You're living an adult life and you're doing school and, all these things. And so I definitely relate to that. And also I do think that, when so much of your brain is spent memorizing scripts, which is literally where most of my brain, kind of went. It's a different kind of emotional taxation on the memory system because your brain is told what to prioritize. And I don't think this is just a Frankie and Mayim conversation. I think this is true of a child who's experienced trauma, of a child who's grown up in abuse. There's only so much that the brain can handle. And if we're given a task learn this script, put your body in the same place for, most weeks of, most months of your life for the critically developmentally adolescent years, there's not going to be a lot of room, kind of for other stuff. I very famously shared a hotel room with my grandmother at my cousin Adam's wedding, and I do not remember. And I was not drunk, I was not a drinker, I was not on the drugs. And literally there's photos of the event, but I'm how do I not remember that we were at a wedding and it was after Shabbat? I remember that because you can't get married till the sun goes down on a Saturday night. And so it was the wedding started at 10 because it was Long Island. And at some point I slept in a room with my grandmother and I think I should remember that. So I also have a bizarro memory for lyrics. I can remember entire Elvis Costello albums that I haven't listened to in 10 years. So it's almost my brain was primed for a certain kind of information and then another kind of information it does not want to know about. But I do have a question in terms of have you noticed other times in your life where you're oh, it doesn't seem like my memory works that of other people? Like, is it something you noticed besides Dancing with the Stars?
No, I do for sure. Even being on Malcolm, right? Even being on Malcolm, my memories become what I see from the outside. So if I watch an episode or I watch a movie I was in, my memory becomes me sitting here watching it. I don't remember what happened on set that day, right? Or if I see a picture, and I think that's I hate so much of, like with my son. I don't hate my son. I'm saying, I feel like I'm missing it because my memory becomes the photo of being there when I look at photos of him and how fast he's grown. You know what I mean? And I go, why can't I remember being in the moment? I remember the photo, right? So I know, because like my wife, for example, I've been with her 8 years, and she can remember what I was wearing on this day at this dinner. We had our anniversary just a week ago or so, and we went out to dinner, and I sat there and I was like, this is going to sound really bad. What did we do last year? You know what I mean? What did we get last year? Like, or what did I get you last year? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, and she can remember everything. I'm like, how do I not? It's not that I don't take it in, because like I love being in the moment and like but like, how do I not remember? So I know that there's a disconnect there with my memory. But like you said, like memorizing a script, I can look at it once or twice and I've got it. You know what I mean? Numbers. I can remember like every credit card number I've ever had. You can show me your credit card and I'll know it forever. You know what I mean? So it's weird how I can remember numbers and stuff like that. But things that I actually feel like I want to remember, like things that I consciously say, like, man, I don't want this to end. I want to be in this moment forever. Leave me. So it's weird. But going back to something you said about how maybe because we were learning so many scripts and so many things, when you're an actor, you constantly are doing things that aren't your life, pretending them for it to be your life, and then you forget about it as soon as you're done filming it, right? And you go on to the next scene or the next thing or the next project. So maybe it just maybe this is like an actor question, but maybe you're trained to kind of like just not fully let things sink in. I don't know.
We haven't heard any of the actors who were child actors talk about that. No one had put it in that crystallized a form before. No one had suggested that is the relationship. And I think, I'm no doctor. I play the sidekick here, but that makes a lot of sense to me.
So I think this is dumb, but this is just like my life. I tweeted, X'd, whatever it's called. This was a few years ago. And I was like, I've never seen The Matrix, is what I tweeted. And people have photos of me at the premiere. And they're like, no, you did.
Maybe you just went for the red carpet and the popcorn and you went home.
No, I never did that. But I'm like, how do I don't know.
I mean,
it's cool though, because I can rewatch the same shows and the same movies all the time and go like.
That's the Alzheimer's joke. Everybody's a new friend.
Yeah. I'm not quite where like my wife has to 51st dates me and like, say, give me a book every morning and say, this is your son. I'm your wife. We met doing this.
But does she write stuff down? Like, is this something she's aware of in that she like wants to help you code things? Is that a thing that actually happens?
I'm not calling her out by saying this. The first 3 years of our relationship, yes, every single day is in a book.
And now she's like, I don't care if he remembers. Just I hope he comes home.
I don't care. Yeah.
When you're watching a movie, this is interesting. If you rewatch a movie that you have seen a few times, even if you don't remember it, will any part of it feel familiar? Will there be any sort of recollection as it comes up? Like sometimes I'll do this. I'm like, oh, I don't really know if I've seen that movie, but like I'll get far enough into it. I'll be like, oh yeah, that kind of part seems a little familiar.
Yeah, I will have that all the time. But at the same time, I'm like, how do I not know what's going to happen next? You know what I mean? Like I can still enjoy it as if I haven't seen it again. I'm not talking like, a week ago. I'm talking like something I saw 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I know there's weird things like you said about like remembering lyrics and stuff like that. I heard a John Cicada song.
No one remembers those, Frankie.
I haven't heard since I was 8. And somehow I was singing every lyric. And I'm like, how do I know this? How do I know this is not something I need to remember?
Song lyrics sit somewhere else in the brain. It's fascinating. My brother, who is now 47, he had a very traumatic brain injury when he was 17. And he has a lot of word retrieval problems, very difficult memory issues. But if you put on music from before his accident, the words come out of his mouth and he's surprised.
I do want to ask about another, interesting thing about you. You kind of had, a series of, I don't want to say mysterious, but complicated events that, that as happen with the kinds of things that you were experiencing can often be misdiagnosed. And, you're sent for like this scan and that scan. And like doctors are just people and they're humans.
Yeah.
And, sometimes they mess up or don't get something right. And, originally you were told you were having like TIAs, transient ischemic attacks, which are, kind of like little strokes, like basically like there's not enough information getting the blood variety and the oxygen variety. And eventually after, it sounds like kind of several years of this sort of like back and forth and like, what do you do? You talked about, what a migraine with aura can mimic. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about sort of, is that the diagnosis that, that you have? I do get migraines and I do have migraines with aura. I don't only get them with aura. My older son gets only the aura with no pain, which I did not even know. It's called a painless migraine. So there's so many, mysterious and complicated aspects of this part of the brain. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about sort of how this came about and how you arrived at where you're at now.
I remember the first time I had an episode,
right?
We'll call it that, right? I was actually riding my motorcycle and I was trying to switch lanes and I realized like, wait, why can't I see where the cars are? Like I can't see what's right here. And I turned my head and it would kind of, and I pulled off and I all of a sudden realized like I could see, but I couldn't tell what things were. Like my brain wouldn't register what I was witnessing. And then I had like numbness down my body, like my body and tingling and my tongue. And I ended up calling this was a long time ago, my ex-girlfriend to come get me. And she picked me up and I knew it was her, but I didn't recognize her, but I knew it was her. Right. So like all these weird things. She said I was like in my brain, I was talking, but I wasn't really saying words. So like
those sound like stroke symptoms. Yeah.
Yeah. So rushed me to the hospital and, I'm not talking bad about hospitals or the medical field at all.
You can. This is a safe space.
They're like, we'll go have this, check that, go to this doctor, go to that doctor. No, we didn't find anything. Go here, go there. And nobody would really give me like a definitive answer. But they were saying, it sounds like, you experience a TIA or a mini stroke. So I kind of went with that. Like, what's causing it? Usually like there's a small hole in the heart that can cause a small clot. For the mini stroke, I didn't have that. Like, so I was doing everything and I didn't fit the criteria of people who normally would have that. I've never drank. I've never smoked. I work out every day. So I kind of kept trying to figure it out, but I kept having it. And it almost became so frequent that in my head, I had 30 of these episodes over a 6-month period.
Wow.
But it got scary because I was trying to even figure out what brings it on. Like, what am I doing that brings on this? Is it something I ate? Is it something I did? Was the helmet too tight? I'm just like trying to figure all these things out. And I started journaling it just to see what was similar. And really nothing there was no direct correlation to having one.
Hmm.
So I unfortunately, because it's what you do, came out and said that, I was diagnosed with these TIAs. I say unfortunate because it's restricted me now. This I think happened in 2011, 2012, around then. I know I lost acting gigs because of it.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because they wouldn't insure me because they thought like it was some big thing. I can't currently, and haven't been able to for the past 10, 15 years, get life insurance. You know what I mean? I race cars professionally. I don't have life insurance for my family if something happens. You know what I mean? Because in my medical history, even though it's been fixed now, it says TIAs, or these these things. So finally, after years of kind of giving up on getting a true answer of why I was getting these things, I was just so, and once again, I'm not talking bad about doctors, but I gave up on doctors in general. You know what I mean? I felt like every time I ever went in for anything, I'm never given a true, it was kind of like, I don't know, go see this person. I'm like, I'm tired of going to see more people and just getting more bills. You know what I mean? So I gave up. But after years, finally about 3 years ago, I went into a new doctor and kind of explained it. And he goes, oh, that sounds like aura migraines. Migraines with aura. Have you heard of that? I'm like, no. And gave me the symptoms. I'm like, how did the 30 other doctors I went to never even brought that up as a thing? And he gave me a pill and he said, if you ever sense when it's, because I know when it's going to come. Like I literally can feel it in my face. I know that in 30 minutes or whatever, I'm going to have it. He's like, you take this pill and you won't have it. I haven't had one since.
Wow. And how often have you felt one coming on?
Maybe only 2 or 3 times.
Huh.
But I've caught it with that pill that he gave and it's nothing. So he officially diagnosed me with migraines with aura.
Wow.
And it eliminated that TI, because like I said, nobody could find things that tied it to the TIAs exactly. But when you say the symptoms, they go, it sounds like that. It must be. So yeah, so it was a interesting time. I feel like when you have, I've been vocal, or not too vocal, but I've talked about my memory issues. I've talked about my concussions. I've talked about these supposed TIAs, now aura migraines. And I think people have, in a sense, not felt bad for me or thinking like, oh, there's something wrong. I live my life as, I don't know, I just live. You know what I mean? I'm just me. I don't know what it's like to be anybody else, right? I don't know if my memory, I know that people have better memories than me, but I don't, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like I let it hinder my day or things that I do or things that I want to do or plans or goals and stuff like that. So I don't know.
Does it impact you on a daily basis? Like, obviously, it's challenging if there are events in your life that you can't remember, but like on a daily functioning basis, how does it impact you?
No, it's not that at all. Like, it's not to that level where I'm like, sure, I have the moments like everybody where you go into a room and you go, wait, why did I come in here? What was I coming here to get? You know what I mean? Or, but no, not in the sense where I feel like it hinders me at all. It's more, I've always hated since I was a kid, time. I hate time because I feel like time is going so fast. So when I was, I've always woke up before 5 a.m. because like I don't want to waste any of the day. You know what I mean? I want to live as much as I can and do as much as I can in a day. But I think the thing that does affect me is with my son, you see time more because how fast they grow or how fast they change. You look at photos like how, so I hate the fact that, I'm hard on my wife about taking tons of photos, so at least I have them. You know what I mean? At least I have that, but I don't want to lose those memories because they're so special to me. But I feel like I do lose those. And that's the one thing that affects me. You know what I mean? Is I'm like, why am I so bad at that? I don't know. Even races. like races. I did a 300 lap race, and the next day I know I did the race. And this isn't like, but maybe it's because you're just so focused, you're in it. But I can remember like one or two things that happened in the race, but I don't remember the other 298 laps. Right? You know what I mean? Like, where there's other drivers who can specifically like, they can go, oh, on lap 149, I had a slight vibration and I passed this guy and I saw up in the stands. I'm like, who's looking up in the stand? You know, like, I don't know, but no, sorry, maybe I'm talking about it too much. No, I don't think it affects me on a day-to-day basis. It's just, you know, an interesting thing of what I absorb and what I don't.
I have a question that's related to time. You know, I wonder if you have any sort of reflections on the way people remember you, because, you know, you were a really important part of so many people's lives. And, you know, your show was so special to so many people, and it really had a very specific kind of humor, and, you know, you were adorable and, you know, really a very charismatic, very, very appealing, you know, persona. And I would imagine that, you know, so many people, like, you're frozen in time for them in so many ways. So I wonder, I'm especially curious, when you were younger, you know, I'm not sure if you ever like went to therapy, or if like this was something you ever like dealt with, you know, on a more like kind of higher level processing kind of level.
You know, to be honest, no, I never like on a professional level talked about it or kind of went through it in my past. There are things now at 38 years old that I think of and I go, or my wife, she's pretty good at kind of, she's not a professional, but like kind of bringing up my past or things that happened, or it goes, maybe that's why you think this way, or maybe that's why you do this, or maybe that's why you do that. I think now, this is something I've never said publicly, like I realized in the last month or two that I would love to dive into that stuff with someone on a professional level. You know what I mean? I don't think in my entire life I've ever really thought about it. You know what I mean? Or allowed myself to like, the word's not make excuses, make reasoning behind some of my personality traits or stuff like that. But to be honest, when I was on the show, when I was in it, I was excited to be on the show and in it. Right. I loved being an actor. I loved being on set. I hated the child labor laws at the time because they would send me home, and I just wanted to I wanted to keep going. I wanted to do it. But I never fully got involved in the Hollywood aspect of being on a TV show that I think takes people down a bad path. Not a bad path. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the wrong path. I remember just feeling like I was me. And that's all I knew. I wasn't trying to be different for anybody else at the time. You know what I mean? I wasn't trying to do anything for anybody else. But I remember people always being like, you really have to make sure, you know, you do this or you do that, or, you know, the next role you pick has to be a certain thing. Otherwise you're going to be typecast as a certain character. You got to do this, you got to do that. And I kind of remember always being like, yeah, well, send me the scripts that are the options for the movies for us to do this summer, and I'll pick which one ever seems the most fun. That was kind of me. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
yeah,
I think like these days, like now, there's times where I think back at the things I got to do when I was a child actor, or I was acting my early years of being an adult. And having stepped away from the entertainment world, from that business, kind of in the height of my career, like right when Malcolm ended, I was like, thanks, I'm going racing. You know what I mean? And it allowed me to have a greater appreciation for life in general. Little things, as dumb as it sounds, of like moving to Scottsdale in 2008, I think saved my life. And I don't mean that in the sense like where I'm 38. I've still never had a sip of alcohol. I've never done drugs. I've never done anything. So I don't mean in that sense. I don't mean in like the sense of like, oh, I'm going to go off the deep end. like so many child actors do. I realized when I moved here that I started looking up. Like I started realizing like, this is so cheesy, like me saying it, like, I'm sorry. But like, I look at the sky, I looked at the trees, like I went hiking. I started doing more life things. But in that sense, it made me look back at what I did in my past and have such a great appreciation for it that anything I do now, I dive in 100% because I don't want to look back at anything that I do and go, I could have tried harder. I could have been nicer, right? I could have, gone out of my way. I make sure, like, this might sound really dumb to you. I hang up my clothes. I hang up my wardrobe every night and put it, and hang it back up. Like, whereas a kid, I just, it's there. You know what I mean? Like on the couch. Bye. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but maybe I'm just rambling a little bit. But I know that there's things that I do need to dive into to figure out about myself, and I'm admitting that now, which I never did in my life until recently. So I'm gonna work on that.
I have to ask, were you raised in a tradition that did not drink? Do you not want to drink?
Oh no,
you don't have to.
Every family member in my family drinks, and that's what they do, like for fun. You know what I mean? I think as I've tried to figure out why I didn't, because I don't have a reason. It wasn't like a religion. It wasn't it wasn't. But maybe it goes back to my hatred towards time. When I was 15, 16 years old, I felt like I was so old. Like I had experienced so much, and I had experienced a lot in my life in comparison to most 15 or 16-year-olds. But even though I was in the entertainment business, I never saw it, meaning the drug use, any of that stuff. I somehow just stayed away. Like I don't know. I just didn't. I went to the set, did my thing. And I think the first time, like I grew up thinking the only people who smoked pot were criminals on Cops. You know what I mean? On episodes of Cops. You know what I mean? I don't know why. Now I talked to my dad about it, my mom, and they're like, we smoked pot every single day. You just didn't know. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's a weird thing to think back at. But at 18 years old was the first time that I was really kind of around it. And in my mind, going back to the time thing, I felt like I had made it so long without it that I was kind of like, well, I'm not going to start now, even though like I was only 18 or 17 or 18. You know what I'm saying? And I couldn't believe everybody's reactions when I said, I don't drink. They'd be like, we're at a club. We have a bottle. You want to drink? No, I don't drink. I'm good with water. Everyone was either shocked, like either appalled that I didn't drink, or they'd be like, wow, that's so it's so strong of you. You know what I mean? That you don't. And I was always kind of like, it's so weird that people have such a strong reaction to me not drinking. Like, who cares? Right? I don't care what you do. I don't care. You know what I mean? Why do you care so much about me? That I was almost like, I don't know if I made a conscious decision, but it just stuck with me that I just was never going to drink or do anything. But now I'm 38. And I think I'm going to start tonight. No, I'm kidding.
Do you want to talk about that there's been discussion of a possible Malcolm in the Middle reboot?
Yeah. I want to say it was 2014. I had just watched, maybe, I don't know when it was, sometime a long time ago. I'd watched Malcolm for the first time ever, like all the episodes. They were on Netflix or something. And when the show was on, I never watched it, but it was really interesting to watch because I really got to watch it as a viewer because I didn't necessarily remember what was going to happen in the episodes. I didn't, and my perspective of the show completely changed from what I thought the show was to what it actually was when I watched it. Like what I thought the show we were making was compared to what it was. Even characters that when we were filming the show, I was like, I don't really like that character. They became my favorite characters as a viewer. And I think I tweeted like, man, I just finished watching the thing. I would love to know where Malcolm and his family are now. At that time was 10 years later. You know what I mean? Now it's almost been 20 years since the show ended. And everyone kind of was like, oh, that'd be so great. And then Bryan Cranston and Jane Kaczmarek and all the cast started kind of sending emails together. And everybody was like, we've got to do this. We've got to do it. And the only, I don't want to call it a hiccup because it's not a hiccup, but the creator of the show, Linwood Boomer, when we contacted him, he was like, I think it would be amazing. He's like, but I don't want to do it. He's like, because I just don't have time because I'm focused on my charity and I'm focused on this. He's like, but if you get these two writers to be involved, it'll have my blessing if what they come up with is good. So really for the last couple of years, Bryan Cranston and these two writers Brian's been heading kind of pushing it because he really loves the idea of putting together a script and figuring out what it could be. And we'll see what happens. I mean, I would love it, especially, like I said, I have a greater appreciation of even what the show is and was, and would love to dive in with all those people again to do it. And in that same sense, that was 2014 or whatever when we originally started talking about it. So many shows have been rebooted. And so many shows shouldn't have been rebooted. So I don't want to be like just one of those shows that gets like it has to make sense. It has to be good. But I don't know. Well, so we'll see. I would be into it 100% if it happened, but we'll see.
I have one more question. You posted something really, really sweet. No, it was a picture of you and your son, and it said that you were teaching him meditation early. Was it a joke, or do you have a meditation practice?
I need to become, how do I put this? Nobody needs meditation in their lives more than I do, right? I'm a very, very high stress. Like I'm at a 10 always with like, I've been up since 2:45 this morning. You know, I did 2 hours of my race simulator. I went to the gym at 5 a.m. to 6:30. You know, like it's just my personality is to always kind of be on the move. But I allow myself to stay really high stress, like really worried about the things I need to continue to do and want to do. So my wife suggested starting to do meditation more on a regular basis. And I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't done it on a regular basis. I've done it here and there, but I need to get better at it. The problem is I don't know how to turn my brain off at all. So even when I do the meditation, I'm supposed to be like focused on my breath and all that, but I'm thinking of the 7 million things that I forgot to do or I need to do. And it's also like an issue for me with sleeping. I can fall asleep, like I'll fall asleep, but if I'll wake up at 1 a.m. with my mind just racing and I can't go back to sleep, I'm up. So I think I'm the perfect candidate to make it a regular part of my life. And today, like I'm not just saying that because I'm having this interview. Today is day one of my preparation for the 2024 race season. As dumb as that sounds. My first race is the middle of February, but I'm on a whole new mind frame starting today to make sure I'm as prepared as humanly possible. And I put meditation in as one of the things that I'm going to spend, you know, if it's 10 minutes at first, every single night before I go to bed doing. So, you know, I'm using it as motivation to be a better driver to make myself do it. But I think I definitely need it as just a human in general.
All I'm going to say is if you're going to have a race, I don't want you waking up at 2:30 in the morning. I want you to wake up like at maybe 6.
Yeah, I know. It's been, you know, I wear like this heart rate monitor all the time that tracks my sleep and all that. And I was looking through it the other day and it's like my average sleep is like 4 hours and 12 minutes. You know
Frankie,
what I mean?
we need to work on this.
I know I do. I'm exhausted, but look at me. You know, I got too much to do, too much I want to do and accomplish. I can't sleep. It's why I'm also only like 5'4", right? They say you sleep when you grow. You grow when you sleep. And I didn't really sleep as a child. So, here I am.
Frankie, I want to offer you a little perspective on meditation. When I heard you mention that, you're not good at it, or your thoughts are racing and you're thinking about the 7,000 things. First, it's cumulative. The effects of meditation grow and compound over time. Secondly, there's no real ability for us to silence our mind. That notion is like a real misnomer. So a lot of people think they're not doing it right, when just sitting in your thoughts and beginning not to follow them is the practice. So allowing them to cycle is totally great. And then you'll notice that, oh, wait a second, I'm thinking, I'm going to just come back, because our thoughts will lead us somewhere. So one thought will lead to the next thought, and there's all these chains. So all you're trying to do with the breath and with focus and with relaxation is just say, for a tiny moment, just like a little millisecond, can I give space between all the 7,000 thoughts, or that one thought, how it quickly spirals to the next. And if you're starting and it's a practice for you, I think it's really interesting to experiment with time. Instead, some people, like 15 minutes feels like a lot. 5 minutes a couple times a day, leading up to maybe extending and incrementally, often has a really big difference. But most importantly, you're never not doing it right. Sitting down, you've done it.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I'll keep that in mind for sure as I start on day one, day one again, but day one of every day tonight. Because I always feel like I'm like, what am I not getting? Like, how can you do it?
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like weightlifting. Like the first time you try and lift a heavy weight, it seems impossible. But
yeah,
Jonathan's right. There's definitely a cumulative aspect, and those voices get quieter and quieter. But I've found that at anxious times of my life, those voices will get really, really loud again. So it's apparently just this ride called life. So
yeah. Well, I appreciate you.
I'm curious. You have an older sister, correct?
Yes.
Are you similarly wired? Is she also a high energy person? Is she a race car driver too?
No. To be honest, I was just with my sister this past week, and I don't think that her and I could be more different. She can be loud, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Like, so she could be like, whoo, but she's also, maybe she's just smart. She doesn't take on as much as I try to take on. I'm not good at divvying up responsibility, right? Even with like the olive oil company, my wife and I, we bought it and we hired all these people, but then we realized I kept taking responsibilities away from our employees, because I was like, I'll handle it. I'll do it. I got that. And then I realized I was just doing everything. You know what I mean? She does a better job of kind of doing what her strong points are, and then allowing other people to come in and handle the rest. She's a really, really, really good mom. She has twin daughters. But no, we don't look alike. We don't like the same things. If you told me that, this is going to be controversial, but it's not. I'm joking. I'm joking. My uncle, I saw my grandmother unfortunately passed away last Saturday. So we all came together for the funeral this past week in New Jersey, and my uncle came into the wake, and I go, "That's my dad." That's my dad. We have the same personality. We look alike. I mean, he's my dad's brother, but I don't look anything like my dad. My dad looks like my sister, or my sister looks like my dad. I joke with my mom. I'm like, Mom, did you hook up with Uncle Al? Are you sure? I need to go on an episode of Maury to get this figured out.
Well, Frankie, it's been so much fun talking to you. Where can people find out all of the things that you want them to know about you? Do you have a site for your racing? Like, where are you on Instagram? Tell people where to find you. Yeah,
I'm on Instagram. That's the kind of the most, I'm not very active on social media at all. But if I was going to be active anywhere, it'd be on Instagram. It's Frankie Muniz 4. Frankie Muniz 1, 2, and 3 were taken. It's Frankie Muniz 4. And then for my racing, it's munizracing.com. I'm about to announce what I'll be racing next year, the series, and got tons of cool Frankie Muniz racing merchandise. You can check it out and support. It means honestly the world to me because it's the thing I'm the most passionate about, and I'm working really hard. So when I have support of my followers and stuff for the racing, like it honestly means so much more to me than anything I've done. So hope to see you guys at a race.
Drive safe, take care of yourself, and
Thank you.
Hopefully our paths will cross again.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys so much. Have a good one.
You could not get me in a race car. It wouldn't happen.
What was the sound that he made when he was... That's what you hear when I'm talking?
I mean, honestly, it seems that the thing that I really am happy for him about is that it really feels like that's a very comfortable place for him, for whatever reason. And, he shared with us so much about challenges that he has with memory and, a history of significant concussions. And it seems like that's a really comfortable place for him. And it makes me happy for him. I just can't imagine feeling safe, calm, or at home in that environment at that speed.
No, it's terrifying.
I think that his story about, having this medical conundrum that, he really didn't receive, it sounds like, proper care for. It's so frustrating. I think a lot of people can really relate to that, I think that he had a situation also where this diagnosis has like negatively impacted him. It was very interesting to hear about.
Mayim, tell us a little bit about migraines with aura.
They can feel and sound a lot like a stroke, but typically that kind of thing is assessed by a scan. And, migraines, like they tend to run in families. They are often triggered around hormonal events. So women, tend to experience them and, often around your period. Men can also get them. I think all the women in my family, like in 3 branches of my family, all the women get migraines and some of the men. And as I mentioned, my older son gets just what's called the aura. So the aura is a disruption to your visual field. And there's actually some incredible art that has been drawn by artists or, just people who have migraines who literally illustrate what the aura is like. It's often described as a shimmery silver, kind of apparition, just outside of your visual field. But when you move your head, it moves with you. It doesn't exactly exist in space. It's an artifact that your brain produces. I often have trouble forming sentences and making sense. It takes a tremendous amount of mental energy to function when you have any kind of migraine, but in particular a migraine with aura. I often get sound sensitive, light sensitive, like that notion of like, I just need to cover my face and put, and cover my ears and sleep it off. That typically comes more with an aura migraine, but can happen with migraines without aura. My mom has experienced paralysis during these kind of attacks. It's not pleasant. It really feels like a stroke. And often it can be a silent stroke. These are often risk factors for each other. But as I said, you can have just the aura with no pain. And the pain of a migraine is not just a bad headache. It typically activates, I think it's the trigeminal nerve. And it can go, like when I get it, it goes in, it feels like it's in my nostril and in my teeth and my gums. Like my mouth hurts. And it's like a very specific projection of pain that comes with migraines. Mine stopped when my lady cycle hormones stopped. I'm really grateful for that. I get them once in a while. But yeah, what he described was a super, super frequent incidence, which, I kind of wish that I, could hang up a shingle and get inside the brain of Frankie because I think there probably was a lot of other stuff going on in his life that might have been contributing to a level of stress or anxiety or just tension that might have, led to that sharp of an increase in migraines. I didn't get my first one until I was in college. I was 19.
A few things that came to my attention that I would want more insight into. The sleep issues or not sleeping more than 4 hours a night, especially since he was a kid.
I want him to get more sleep.
I also want him to get more sleep, but also if that's been going on since he was a kid, it's going to have some cumulative effects. Also, the concussions breed a higher tendency to have more concussions. So, that's an interesting bit of information in his medical history. And the falling asleep and waking up at 1 with racing thoughts. Recently, I got my brain scanned, and not in a big MRI device, but in with EEGs, and it shows the map of brain activity that's happening. And I won't go too much into detail about what it said specifically about me, but you can tell how much anxiety you have, or fight or flight activities going on. And so I would imagine, if I had to make an educated or semi-educated guess about what's going on for him, I would imagine that he's in a very revved up state and can't really get into deeper relaxation states. And I would be super curious what his brain map looked like.
I think it's safe to say that Frankie lives a really interesting, very high adrenaline lifestyle, admittedly has not been in therapy, and sounds like is interested in exploring some of these things. And, I think anyone with, the sort of interesting features of childhood and adolescence that he had would probably really benefit, from doing some of that exploration. And I think especially now that he's a dad, and I think for a lot of us when we have kids, a lot of that stuff kind of comes into focus in a new way. I really appreciated his both the challenges that he has with time and also his appreciation for time. I thought that was kind of a really nice, those dovetailed really nicely for me.
Well, it was good spending time with him. If people want to spend time with us, they should do so by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking the little bell notifications for new episodes, and find us everywhere you get podcasts.
From our breakdown to the one we hope you never have, we'll see you next time.
It's Mayim Bialik's breakdown. She's gonna break it down for you. She's got a neuroscience PhD or 2, one fiction, one, and now she's gonna break down. It's a breakdown. She's gonna break it down.